Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, AmTrust Title, Ariel Property Advisors, Customers Bank, Capital One Bank, Meridian Capital Group. Additional funding has been provided by grants from AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Castamatidis Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merengoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends. What's happening with the office market? Is it good for tenants? Is it good for a landlord? What are these new innovations, okay? These programs, co-working, industrious, all these new people. What's happening? Where are people? Are they opening up offices in Brooklyn, Queens, all over? I don't know the answer. So today I've assembled these 4 leaders in the office market to provide their insight on what's really happening in the office market. My guests, they include Steve Wexler, who is the Senior Managing Director at Tishman Speyer, Rob Lapidus, who is the CIO and co-founder of L&L Holdings, Stephen Merengoff, who is the Chairman and CEO of Himmel Merengoff Properties, and last but not least, Brian Steinwurzel, who is the co-CEO at GFP Properties. So if we go by age over here, since I have a couple of my peers and contemporaries over here, how is the market today? The world has changed. Steve, how is Tishman Speyer, who owns significant holdings all over the world, but in this market, how is the market? How do you see it?
I think the market is has an equilibrium. I think it's pretty fair for both tenants and landlords. I think we're seeing that tenants have choices. They're looking at different markets. They're not just focused on Midtown and downtown or Midtown South, looking at Hudson Yards, looking at Brooklyn, Queens, looking at neighborhoods that they wouldn't consider before. And I think that many tenants, large tenants, want new construction because that's something that has not been available to them on a steady basis in New York City for a while. But many tenants are staying where they are.
If I look at it this way, of the 4 people over here, the only one who's really has done new construction over the last couple of years would be you over there.
Right.
You've done a lot of changes in properties, of upgrading properties, and I mean taking 390 Madison Avenue, 425. You are in new construction, but at different developments over here. These guys have been in properties which have been B properties, which have been in neighborhoods that are only growing because people want to live, work, and operate in this market. Steve said before that somebody's looking all over. So at one time, people wouldn't want to go down to the financial district. It wasn't a market over there. You've done a lot of conversion down there. Who's the tenants today going down to the financial? Or is it what Steve said, everybody's looking?
I think it's all of them. There are no bad markets in Manhattan any longer. Downtown is incredibly vibrant. We believe that the center of Manhattan has moved south because of Brooklyn and all the housing that's been created there. The transportation is incredible, and instead of it being a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday market, it's really become a 24/7, 365-day-a-year area. We're big believers.
Now, you've made a major commitment into Long Island City. Somebody was saying to me in a previous show, when they built the Citicorp building many years ago, I proverbially call it the Jolly Green Giant.
Yeah.
Nothing took place. No residential development, no other office buildings came over there. You had owned some property over there, but they were industrial properties. Right. Who's moving to the office space in Long Island City?
Well, about 10 years ago, we built a brand new building, and the Department of Health from the City of New York came in and leased that building for 20 years. So that was the start of it. And on the other corner, we are building 1.2 million square feet, and most of it's been leased to Bloomingdale's, who came from New York City, and we also have WeWork in there. But frankly, it's very active, and probably will have a major medical group and other tenants, and we'll be 100%, I think, well before we finish it.
You bring up the medical groups. A couple of months ago, I've done numerous shows on healthcare on the Stoller Report. And a couple of months ago, I had the team basically from NYU of the ambulatory care. And 15 years ago, they had 3 ambulatory facilities. Today, they have 260 ambulatory facilities. Yeah. I mean, they are taking humongous space, like on 41st Street when they took over the office building off 3rd Avenue. Are you seeing in your properties the medical people going in other areas?
Well, listen, I think medical, life sciences, I mean, if you think about the diversity of the economy in New York, I mean, that's one of the real great stories, right? I mean, I think Bloomberg's Cornell Technion project is a real legacy project that is really bringing applied science, engineering, that type of
that coupled here with the Alexandria Medical.
Yeah, so it's good stuff. I mean, listen, you always think about New York as like law and finance sort of driving the boat in terms of tenant demand, but the diversity of the economy in New York has just been great. It's a great thing for us, as landlords, but like everything else, you have to have the properties that those tenants want, right? So it's a different type of use, for those types of users, but they're voracious, users of space. So that's a good thing, more demand.
And
right?
As opposed to what Steve was saying in the green room, tenants today signing 5-year leases, the nonprofits.
No, they'll go real long.
They all go for 30
years, right. Well, they can get really good financing, right?
They get the financing, and they also get the tax exemption.
That's right.
If they have the 30-year lease over
That's
there.
Right.
Steve, you and Brian were in most of your properties, and part of your properties also, were in an area that they have called the nomad neighborhood. Nomad has become mad, okay, in the same manner that everybody wants to be there. Now, there's a new office building, a luxury office building, being built in the nomad neighborhood.
Yes, there is.
Okay, where they are projecting rents of over $150 a foot.
Yep.
Now, you have two.
You're talking about Zeal's building, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How voracious is the appetite of people to go into this nomad neighborhood today?
Well, our own headquarters is at 30 West 26th Street, so we're sort of right there. It's changed beyond any imagination in the last 15 years. It's tremendously hot, and neighborhoods come and they go. But for right now, it is the hottest neighborhood in the city, as I see it.
Hotter than the meatpacking district?
It's bigger, and so, I mean,
right, there's more opportunity.
For office, there's not a lot of office space in the meatpacking district. So this has been a boon. When I first came to New York, they used to have a map on the back of the seat in front of you in a taxi, and they'd label the different neighborhoods. And that neighborhood was just a gray area with no name on it. And now it's the hottest area in the city. That's New York.
We were talking in the green room with regard to the co-working phenomena, okay? For my audience, explain how you've seen the change in the co-working, because we brought up Regis before, that they were in the co-working many, many years, and they went bankrupt a number of years ago. We have WeWork, we have Industrious, we have The Yard, we have a variety of others. How do you, as a landlord, look at them? And as you were saying, you're even going to go into it yourself, perhaps.
Right.
So what's the difference? What makes WeWork different than Notel and Convene and Industrious?
We have Notel in 2 of our buildings. So in Notel, their tenants will be in their own individual spaces, whereas in a WeWork, it's likely that they will be sharing. And WeWork has an enterprise model that's following to some extent what Notel is doing. We think there's room for them clearly in the city. There's a demand for the type of tenant that doesn't know whether they're going to be 5,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet in 3 years. And that type of a tenant that thinks that they might grow is willing to pay basically double rent in order to have the flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big question amongst these organizations are whether they're going to be able to eliminate the downtime between those tenants coming and going. And if they can, they'll be profitable because of the premium they're able to charge. And if they can't, they won't.
The biggest question I have with those type of tenancies are they sign long-term commitments with the landlord, have short-term underlying leases with their members, whatever they call them. If the market goes through another downturn and a lot of those not credit-worthy short-term tenants aren't there anymore, what do you do? What do you do? You don't have the income to support it.
So I have a question. How do the lenders look at them today? Because I know that a number of years ago when WeWork first started, the lenders were very picky.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do financing on a property that had that type of tenancy.
It's definitely more acceptable today. I think one of the benchmarks people look at is what percentage of the space or the income of the overall property any one of these tenants is taking, and what's that risk look like. So I think a building has 10% or 15% of a co-working space is different than a building that has 40 or 50%. So I think that's part of it. What's their in-place rent? Is it at market, above market, below market? I think all those things come into consideration. But WeWork, for example, has the backing of a lot of really big, sophisticated investors. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. But if you think of like the lemming mentality, Boston Properties invests in them, and J.P. Morgan invests with them, and Harvard's endowment invests with them, and there are others.
SoftBank's put in a multi-billion dollars.
Right. SoftBank, right. So I think people feel more comfortable once there are other investors there. Listen, the bottom line of WeWork is they still lose a lot of money. I know I have to run my business and I have to look like, are we making money at the end of the year? Are we profitable? They somehow are selling themselves as a technology company.
Okay, but many people remember Amazon never made money until a couple of years ago either.
I think it's a very different situation, right? And startup businesses in general, when they're in growth mode, are consuming a lot of capital.
Okay,
right, before they make money.
Let's look at, and we were talking about this, Tishman Speyer having numerous properties, creating your own. I mean, Larry Silverstein did it with Silver Suites.
Yep.
There are a couple of other people who have done in the suburban buildings over there. I mean, you've had tenants over there in the co-working or office sharing for years. Tell me about the thoughts of Tishman going into this business.
Well, first of all, we have tenants all over the world, who we do business with, and we have space that if it's sitting around and we have it, we might as well not worry about the term. So why not take aside a certain amount of space within your building that you're comfortable with, provide all the facilities for anyone who wants to co-work and all the amenities, and rent it. If somebody wants a month, if somebody wants 2 months, 3 months, we'll rent it. I think what's happened is there's huge growth by corporations who look at it as an amenity to the building that they're in, that if they want to start up a group and they don't want to make a commitment for 5, 10, 15 years, that they can move it within the same building to a co-working facility, take a 6-month lease or look, month to month, and basically see how they do. Yeah. And then make a decision. And also, as Brian said, they don't know how big they're going to be. So why make a decision right away, especially with technology changing? I mean, it's a very smart decision. So that's really changed the dynamics, and I think you're going to see co-working on the upswing in terms of a lot of tenants looking at, not worried about paying higher rent, but getting the flexibility of term.
And we also see it as somewhat of an incubator. So when these organizations do mature and they understand what their long-term needs are going to be, they become tenants of ours as well. So we've been fortunate enough to take some of the tenants as they've grown out of the WeWorks and out of the Notels and have become tenants of ours.
Yeah, they're comfortable with the property and so on. Let's talk about the far west side. Your building right now, you're under construction for what, a 3 million square foot building?
2.85, but who's counting?
Okay, that's exactly
By the
why.
time it's done, the loss factor will make it 3 million, right?
Wait. The best story is the loss factor of conversions of the industrial, which had no loss factor
Yeah.
to a 30% loss factor today. Who's looking on the far west side? I mean, Related has done exceptionally well in their business, and so has Brookfield, okay? A lot of people still complain that the transportation on the far west side is not that great.
Yep.
But you do have the port. You have the Port Authority. You have Penn Station. You have the subways, and so on. What do you see the tendency going there? Is it all going to be large tenants, or are we going to have some smaller tenants?
Well, I think right now you're seeing large tenants. We just signed a lease with Pfizer for 800,000 feet in the building, so now we only have 2 million square feet to go. And we're looking at about 2 million square feet of prospects, law firms, private equity shops, financial companies. They're all looking. As their space comes up, they have to consider looking at new space. They have to consider it because a lot of their competitors are in new space. And I think a lot of the real buzzword is you've got to hire. And employment is really at its all-time low. I mean, unemployment is at its all-time low. And so you have to keep up with everyone. So a lot of law firms have moved there and got a great space. And a lot of firms feel that they have to keep up. We're working with one law firm where the senior partner was with another law firm that made a decision to renew at their building. And she said right away that they regret it because they should have made the move. They should have gotten the efficiencies, gotten the new offices that make sense for them. They can reconfigure how many square feet they want for each partner. It's very easy seamless to move in. And frankly, when you look at what they can save in space, when you look at the higher rent, it pretty much comes out to a much lower number when you figure out how many people
More
they can put on a
efficient.
floor.
You bring up Pfizer, which relates to a little bit about Midtown's east zoning.
Yep.
How do you see that taking an effect in the city today?
Listen, it's a great thing. We need it. But the reality is getting possession of a vacant building to take advantage of it, there's very few opportunities to do that. It's not like an instantaneous situation over time, but now you can look at a building and you can prepare it, right? You can say, okay, my leases are all going to expire at a certain time. I can figure out where to buy additional air rights from. You can do it, but it's not an instant panacea for the needs that we have. I mean, to further, to follow up on what Steve was saying, New York City is a very old city, right? So that's the premise. So the world is flat. There's global investors. If you go to Hong Kong or Shanghai or anywhere in Europe, there's lots more modern buildings.
You're talking about their portfolio where the average age of the building is probably 70 to 80 years old?
Yes. So what Steve is saying, what Hudson Yards, that area, first demonstrated, people said, gee, that location isn't great, right? It's not Midtown, it's not Grand Central. The transportation is more challenged. But new was a real compelling factor. And that was the only place other than, downtown, because of the horrible thing that happened 17 years ago, that World Trade Center had some availability for new product. So the question is, how do you create new product in New York? Where do you do it? And it's hard to do it wholesale, except with these situations where, like we had a 390 or 425, where you got a building vacant. So that's one of the reasons why Hudson Yards has been so successful, is because people want new. Now, if you had new in a more traditional location, it would do great as well, but it's hard to get a site. I mean, SL Green is dealing with what they're dealing with at One Vanderbilt. That'll be successful because it's a new product. But there haven't been options for new, and with the efficiencies and restacking, and the other thing, the competitive nature of businesses. So Steve's exactly right. If you're a law firm or a private equity firm and you're recruiting the best and brightest students out of whatever school, and they have two competing offers, and one is in an old building, 20th century, no light and air, no amenities, and the other one is 21st century with all those bells and whistles, who do you think is going to get that employee? So all of a sudden it becomes a competitive disadvantage for those tenants that haven't moved to sort of newer space. So that's the next phase of what's going to be happening here.
What about the boroughs? Okay, we were talking previously. You've
Can
been in,
can I just say something
Sure.
about what Rob said? Because there's many different markets in New York. There's many different real estate markets and many different tenant markets. The tenants that we appeal to do not want new. They, in fact, want old.
right.
And in fact, the older the better. And they don't want hung ceilings. They want the type of stuff that we know is being produced for
And today
smaller
they want
tenants. And I think
concrete
they all
floors,
coexist.
and they want open ceilings.
That's right. And they coexist in the same marketplace. And a lot of the tenants I have service the people that are in these type of new buildings. And it's great that we have new product on the market again.
And modern intervention in old space is historically what L&L is all about, right?
Right.
200, 150, 195. That's the best of all worlds. What we're going to be doing on Terminal Building on the west side, then you have sort of that authenticity, that grit, the old nature, but you have the modern, the modern amenities too. So, but there aren't so many places you can do that.
Speaking about that, what's your thoughts about the major investment by the Rudins and Boston Properties in the Brooklyn Navy Yard for office space? I mean, that's a major commitment.
It's a major commitment.
Okay,
and
to build
I think the jury's a little bit
670,000
out
square
on it.
feet.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think in terms of their occupancy.
Yeah, it's
a little slower,
pioneering. It's
little
pioneering.
slow.
But, ultimately over time, we've all lived through these situations where, think about, places like Bushwick. Right? My parents don't ever go to Bushwick. Right? Now it's like a cool
See, but
place.
you don't see any office buildings being built in Bushwick, okay?
Not yet.
You do see, with what Tishman Speyer
Right.
did and some other office buildings in Long Island City and the conversions in other parts. But I'm not seeing Bushwick. I'm seeing downtown Brooklyn.
But if you
there's
go out to the Brooklyn Navy Yards, it is a spectacular,
Yeah.
spectacular
Yeah.
development.
Just hard to
Everyone
get
should-
to.
You've got to, but you've got to go and see it if
Yeah.
you're a tenant and you're looking for that type of space.
Right.
Got to go.
What about the industry city types? Okay, the other industrial. I mean, they're doing rather well.
They've created cachet. They've created a facility where people want to be. And we've had groups that have toured Long Island City and Industry City. Long Island City is one subway stop from Manhattan.
Right.
And they've chosen Industry City because their people, and again, going back to the points you were making earlier, their people want to be there.
Yeah.
So I think if you can create a buzz, a vibe, then
Right.
then you'll be successful, and they've done a great job at that.
And critical mass. Both of these situations, Navy Yards and Industry City, can create enough critical mass where they can create amenities there. Think of Hudson Yards. We're laid in Oxford, and we're doing a lot of residential there, right? So the commute stinks for a lot of people, but a lot of people are able to live right nearby and sort of make it that live, work, play environment. So there are different ways to sort of mitigate that
At
risk.
the same time, we believe that, and I think you do as well, that Long Island City, given its proximity to the city, and the incredible development that's been done there, is going to be the next neighborhood. And if you look at the apartment buildings that you're building and that others are building, they are some of the
you have
nicest
22.
product.
You have 22,000 square feet of residential
Yeah,
coming
trains
in,
are everywhere there.
into the market
Over
in
the
Long
bridge.
Island
It's
City.
some of the
Your-
nicest
your
buildings.
biggest problem is now, even though it's a 5-minute commute into the city, you may have to wait 3 trains to get on the train to get into the city. That's the problem over there.
It would be great to have an administration that was willing to address these issues, one that was willing to work with the real estate community again.
Right. I do believe that the ferries have helped the residential, and they may be helping, some of the office. But it is a long walk from the waterfront over there in Long Island City to go to the office buildings.
Right. It's fine in June and September, but in February it's probably not as pleasurable a walk.
Now, what are you doing in Brooklyn now in the office market?
We're redeveloping the Macy's downtown store.
The original Abraham and Strauss store.
Abraham and Strauss. Actually, I saw there was a plaque, and
There is.
one of the founders was a Wexler, so I never knew that before. But anyway, we made a deal where we got Macy's in last year on a reconfigured store from the basement to the 4th floor in time for Christmas, and we have the space above. It's about 300,000 feet, and we're also building another 300,000 feet of new as an overbuild within that space.
Yep.
So we'll have 600,000 feet with huge amount of terraces and 17-foot ceilings, really good column spacing, great views. That will be available in about a year.
Will the rents be comparative to Manhattan?
Well, the rents will probably be in the high 60s, but remember, if you bring in a tenant from Manhattan,
See, this is something that some of the brokers, okay, don't realize and don't emphasize it, that if you go to Long Island City and you take a tenant from Manhattan, or you go to Brooklyn, it's the REIT benefits,
Yeah. Yes.
which is really worth a lot
Huge.
of
So
money.
it's worth a lot of money.
Impact.
So you can take that rent and knock off $20, $25 a foot, and basically then see where you are. You know, it's a very, very competitive space for effectively brand new space.
Right, and what's happening in similarity of what you were saying about Long Island City, you're having the number of units in downtown Brooklyn. I mean, there are about 15 to 20,000 units coming on market, and many of them are even reasonably priced for sale, because they have, for example, Gary Barnett's property has a 25-year tax abatement, of which 21 years there are no taxes at all. So somebody's looking at it and it's saying over there. So I think, in summation, the office market is relatively strong. There are good opportunities for both the landlord and the tenant. Financing is in place, okay, in most cases. We see this new phenomena, which if I spoke about it 5 or 6 years ago, they'd say, we what? Today, it's not we what. You know, they're the largest tenant over there, and there are other opportunities. But New York City is strong, and with 62 million visitors, many of these visitors coming here and planning to be here for the future, they don't, from visitors, they become residents. It only helps the market. And I'd like to thank Steve, Rob, Steve, and Brian, and I'll see you next week.